Broadcasting on Spice FM on 94.4 in Nairobi. We're in Mombasa, 87.9. Nakuru, 96.0. Kisumu, 102.5. 96.7 in Eldoret. Nyeri, 90.9. Malindi, 97.7. We broadcast this show from Nairobi to the world on www.spicefm.co.ke. We also live stream the show every morning on Twitter, SpiceFMKE, Facebook, and YouTube, Spice FM KE, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday between 7 and 9 a.m. We are also live on KTN Home. A very good morning to our audience on KTN Home. Now, let's talk about government operations, all right, and how the state machinery is run, especially the government and coordination of government operations. We are soon going to be speaking to the Principal Secretary in charge of Interior and Citizen Services, and this is Dr. Engineer Karanja Kibicho. This state department is a very crucial state department in terms of coordination of government functions. It has that. One of the functions actually is that coordination of national government functions. It has a promotion of nationhood and national values. It has oversight and coordination of delivery of the flagship and priority programs, oversight over internal security, when it comes to registration of births, registration of persons, development of integrated identity management system, that's a Huduma number, the rollout of the unique personal identifier, oversight over coordination of the management of the national primary data registration, very many other things. This is according to Executive Order number 1 of 2020 that was released by the President the other day. So this is a crucial ministry, and Dr. Karanja Kibicho is the man who is the senior most civil servant in this particular state department as a principal secretary. So just about Dr. Karanja Kibicho, okay? So when you hear Dr. Karanja Kibicho, he is a mechanical engineer. He's got a PhD in this. He has, served previously as a principal secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, also in the Ministry of Industrialization, and before that, he has served in academia, rising to the level of chair of the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. And now he is right there in charge of interior and citizen services. So this is very crucial. One of the things that we know right now is that the country is fighting COVID-19. And in the fight against COVID-19, it's being coordinated, of course, by the Ministry of Health. But the Ministry of Health really relies a lot on other government departments, one of them being Interior, which is where you find the police when it comes to enforcement, for example, of curfew, when it comes to management of curfew and how things are running. This State Department is also helping. We spoke to the PS in charge of housing the other day, Hinga, and he told us, yes, we are the ones who are running this program, but you have to really rely a lot on officers on the ground, and these are the officers of the Interior. Good morning, Dr. Kibicho.
Morning to you, Eric.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, and welcome to the Situation Room.
Asante.
Dr. Kibicho, you are a very busy man, shall we say, just looking at your workload on a daily basis.
Let me say it's a perception. We are normal people, work normally, 8 to 5, just like you.
Dr. Kibicho, that doesn't sound like it's very true. 8 to 5 is the time, but what you pack in that 8 to 5 is really very different, wouldn't you say?
Depends on how you define work. Since we don't do the manual work, sometimes working means even thinking while you're on bed.
True.
So if you define work that way, then we do a lot of time at work.
That's what we would imagine. When you talk about, for example, interior and coordination of security is a 24-hour service to the people. And you know that your officers are on the ground. You know that at any given moment you may be called upon to issue some advice, to make some decision, to give a brief to your higher ups. I mean, this is what we mean when we say we know that you're definitely a busy man, even when you're asleep, like you said.
Yes, because we have to be alert all the time. When you define that work that way, then you're quite busy. We'll be awake at 5 to get the country situation reports, analyze them, and make decisions early, well before you wake up, to ensure that the day runs smoothly. And then we go and do the usual office work that people do.
Debunking the mysteries, Dr. Kibicho, and there's a general perception that when we hear the Ministry of Interior, we hear this ministry that seems to be Big Brother is watching Kenyans. Is that the truth, or is it from a point of servitude towards the people?
Ministry of Interior is first. Just before we go there, I want Eric to learn the name of the ministry.
Yep.
I could see you are struggling a lot. This ministry is called Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government.
Yes.
And it has 2 state departments. First department is State Department of Correctional Services. That's the one that deals with the prison services. Then we have the State Department of Interior and Citizen Services. Now, the reason why most people perceive it to be a big ministry is because of the services that we offer, because those services touch on every Kenyan. It is unlikely that you will wake up and not interact with Interior, even you, Eric. Because we are responsible for police.
Yep.
We are responsible for national government administrators, right from Nyumbakumi to the regional commissioners. We are responsible for IDs. We are responsible for birth certificates. We are responsible for the citizen services that people really interact with in migration. And therefore, that's why people feel us, because we are the face probably of most of the services that citizens seek for every day.
Yep, that's quite a busy one, and yet indeed it's the one that touches us on a daily basis. Let's talk about now how you are touching us on a daily basis as we try to keep ourselves safe from COVID-19, as we try to take ourselves through treatment for COVID-19. One of the things that we know the government is doing is there are various programs that are meant to help the citizens go through this phase of COVID-19. There's, for example, the Kazi Mtaani program, which is being coordinated from the State Department for Housing, but that is using the structures of the interior to help it run. Recently, we saw a lot of complaints from various quarters, people saying, this program has not reached our village. This program is not paying us the money that we thought to be paying. And then we saw a response from you, and that was that we should avoid fake news and deliberate, the deliberate broadcast of fake news, especially with regards to this. What did you mean by that?
Eric, since March, we've been struggling with a pandemic that there's no country in the world that knows how to deal with. And who tells you they have a silver bullet on this are lying. And every country is trying to see how best they can help their citizens wade through this season. And the government has had a number of interventions. The one that's visible is Kazi Mtaani, because there are people doing work, especially the young people, and people can see them. But there are very many other programs, so hope I'll get an opportunity to talk about them as well. But Kazi Mtaani is what was launched by His Excellency the President in April, I think, April-May, as a national hygiene program. And the entire objective of this program, first, before cleaning up our cities, is to ensure that the hundreds of young people who would otherwise work are engaged, because we know that the industry has slowed down. most of the construction that was going on in this country has slowed down, and therefore you need to get some money into these people's pockets. And instead of telling them to queue for handouts, you get them involved in productive work. Initially, it was targeting unskilled labor, and that is why the Ministry of Interior is quite involved in identification of these young people, because as you are aware, if you are to intervene for every young person who doesn't have a job, they're in their millions. And therefore, the government started a program that was rolled out first in Nairobi and scaled up. And because of budgetary restraints, capped at 300,000 people eventually in the fullness of time. I think now we are about 270 something.
Yeah.
What happens is these young people are made available, and then all other state departments, county governments are asked to bring work they would want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are paid on a daily wage, I think, of 400 and something. I haven't captured that figure there. And this money is transferred to their M-Pesa accounts. But like you'd expect, when you have about 300,000 slots with several millions of people interested, there will be a lot of push and pull in who gets in. And that is how we are using our national government administrators to at least help the State Department of Housing in identification of the eligible young people. But it doesn't mean that the ones who are not in it are not eligible. You're only trying to look at who is more vulnerable. And it's the desire of the government to continue expanding this. It has been allocated 10 billion. We must admit that 10 billion can't solve unemployment.
No, it can't.
It's only 10 billion, but it is a good attempt. And we have seen, as the program rolled to phase 2 in July, scale up from unskilled labor now to semi-skilled labor. And you are seeing these young people now get involved in some almost technical areas. But I continue to restate that the work must come from the State Department and county governments. The State Department of Housing doesn't have the work. The work must, so it's Interior which will say, we want you to come and paint our buildings.
Yeah.
Then we are provided with the labor.
Yeah.
Now, we have this new, and we are going to see that in Nairobi shortly, this new program of repainting the entire of the buildings, government buildings in Nairobi. You're going to see them do that work. And you obviously know that painting is not unskilled labor. And as a result, we'll have these young people trained to do some. I'm sure when P.S. Hinga came here, he must have explained in detail, so that at the end of this program, we not only have put money in their pocket, but we have also left them with some skills.
True.
That's what we try to do.
So, P.S., when we see this program as it's being rolled out, and then there are complaints and murmurings coming from the ground, especially now people saying the Nyumba Kumi leaders not being clear about this, the local chief and the local administrators are playing games in terms of who gets into the list and who doesn't get into the list, how people are getting paid. And we get now the explanation that comes from yourselves and P.S. Hinga. Do you get a feeling like there is politicization of such a program, or even an attempt at sabotaging such a program by the government?
I will be as brutal as one can be with facts. One, when you are having 300,000 slots, and you have 1 million people who want those slots, obviously there is competition. The government has come up with a criteria that has been cascaded to the assistant chiefs, the Nyumba Kumi, right to the village. but there is competition. And therefore, you will expect that if you have 5 people who want one slot, there will always be someone who will feel shortchanged. We have a criteria.
Dr.
And whenever
Kibicho, does the government have plans to enhance this number from 300,000?
we just work with numbers, Eric. The money available is 10 billion. We estimate that we might be this COVID problem before the economy opens up, probably up to early next year. Now, when the economy has closed, because we must also be reasonable people, when the economy has closed, it means there isn't money being generated for government. People are not productive in a manner that, and I'm sure you know this even from the media industry, that people are not producing as much as they were before COVID. And therefore, the kit for the government is limited. There are some things that I have tried to explain whenever I have an opportunity about money in government. Government doesn't have a savings account. Government money comes from tax collection that's done by KRA, and it is spent the same day it comes.
Right.
And therefore, at the end of the year, on 30th June, midnight, all the money is finished. And we start afresh the following year. And therefore, the money available is 10 billion, unless the economy changes. So how many people can you employ with 10 billion for the months up to December? That's the math we must do. If the money situation improves, certainly the government will expand this program. But we must start by, Eric, do you want to pay more taxes so that this program expands? Because we are only a few people in the production sector, because the country has slowed down out of the pandemic. And therefore, to even pay salaries, you are finding even in your own institution is a challenge. It is the same way, cut and paste, how it's happening at Spice, cut and paste government.
Dr. Kibicho, can we see a situation where, just all of these measures are emergency measures because of what is being faced now? And I go back to a place where the country is free of COVID, for example. Are these not programs that can then take up a permanent position in the country, whereby youth are people who are jobless across the board are continuously engaged and then being able to have some kind of gainful employment, as opposed to just one measure taken when there's a pandemic? Is it not something then can be a permanent situation?
Exactly. Like they say, probably you use a misfortune to take lessons. And we are using this because nobody knew that a country can survive the way we are surviving before COVID. I agree with you entirely, and we have seen this program when I talked of moving from unskilled labor to semi-skilled labor. We've seen now this program moving to construction of roads. You can see there are some counties that want to do their roads using cobblestones. And when we succeed in doing that, then there is no reason why we should stop even post-COVID. And I think it is a golden opportunity that we have to change and look at the way we provide labor in this country differently. So I agree with you entirely that post-COVID, we must not stop these programs in terms of provision of labor because we have identified very many areas where these young people can be useful. Secondly, at the end of this, they will have so much skill that stopping the program would actually be putting all those skills to waste. So it has been a wake-up call for everyone in this country that there can be another way of doing these things and engaging the young people. So I agree with you, and this is the line along which the government is also thinking, that we shouldn't stop doing the road construction using the young people simply because COVID has gone.
What would make this difficult, Dr. Kibicho? What makes it difficult to do this work in the country? From this department, from your point of view, what are the setbacks?
I don't think there's any reason or any difficulties other than availability of resources that would make us stop this program. We are talking to the state departments whose programs are labor intensive to ensure that they are aligned even post-COVID. So this COVID has provided us with an opportunity to see, oh, come on, there is another way of doing these things. There is another way of engaging young people than just expecting them to be employed in white-collar jobs. And I think it is certainly a program that is not going to die away because of post-COVID situations. And I think there is no difficulty that we are overseeing other than change of policy. And that is the work of government. And these policies are being discussed, and they will be aligned to the functions of every state department.
It is indeed encouraging to hear that the government is picking up lessons from what is happening now with the fight against COVID-19, and everything that the government is now doing is basically going to be geared towards improving the services. We are speaking with the Principal Secretary in charge of Interior and Citizen Services, Dr. Engineer Karanja Kibicho. He's on the line with us this morning. We are looking at COVID-19, the fight against COVID-19, the government's coordination in this fight, in addressing citizens' needs and services, and also the lessons that are going to be taken out of this and the lessons that are being learned out of this. Remember, in this show, we have C.T. Muga, Nduoko, and Mary Klatif. On the line with us is Dr. Karanja Kibicho. He is the Principal Secretary in the State Department of Interior and Citizen Services. Just before we went to the break, we were talking about Kazi Mtaani and the program that's been rolled out by the government for Kazi Mtaani. 10 billion shillings earmarked to reach out to reach 300,000 youth or people who vulnerable around the country who will be able to work for government and who will be able then to get paid. But Dr. Kibicho, as we went to the break, he was saying, look, this is just 300,000 people, and yet the demand is much higher. There are very many people who will not be able to be reached by this one. It's because we are basically cutting our coat according to the size of our cloth. Or is it the other way around? What do we do with the other 700,000, just assuming that, using just a round figure of a million, what do we do with the other 700,000 who are not going to be able to access this stimulus package from the government?
Thank you very much. And I'm very happy that you acknowledge there's some effort. And I think we haven't spoken about other programs that government is involved in terms of intervening during this difficult period. These programs are intervention programs, and we have another one that probably nobody talks about because you don't see people along the road, see people and blocking drainage. There's a program where the government is giving a further 300,000 vulnerable groups, which were identified. Groups, for example, in the slum areas where we have families who are led by a minor because the parents have passed on. Families where the breadwinners are incapable because of sickness. And we have a criteria that we used. And this group of people, 300,000, again, spread across all the counties, receive 1,000 shillings every week on Tuesday. And I think these are programs that we still haven't talked about. 300,000 every week. The interpretation of that is that every Tuesday morning, the government is disbursing 300 million to this group of people. And this set is different from the other 300,000. We also have another group, the cash transfer, the ones that receive, I think, 4,000 per month, that is dispersed by the State Department of Social Services. And I think collectively you might find that the number you're talking about is not 300,000, could be well over a million. But we also acknowledge that the people who vulnerable are well above a million, and I agree we must live within our means. But there is good effort, and we keep recalibrating these groups so that when they are really needy ones that we may have missed out, we see how we can be able to come in. While we are doing this, because it's important, we have seen that people are saying, we're not getting money in good time and all this. These are system challenges, not government challenges. I will tell you this. For example, the one I talked of, Tuesday, 1,000 to 300,000 people. This money is already with Safaricom. It's in the accounts of Safaricom. We sent at the beginning of this year almost 6 billion Kenya shillings to ensure that it's available when it's needed. But like you would expect, when you are doing M-Pesa to 300,000 people, there will be challenges here and there. And we really want to thank Safaricom for this collaboration because it is free of charge. We send 300 million shillings, 300 million shillings go to the people. I would want, if you allow, also to assess the impact and why are we putting this money into the pockets of Kenyans through M-Pesa, other than the old traditional method of buying food, putting it in trucks and taking it to people in the villages. The logic and the impact on our economy is totally different. I hope you'll be spiced enough to want to hear that.
Actually, yes, and indeed, we even heard it from the president when he talked about, the logistics of it. Much of that money ends up not reaching the intended beneficiary because it's chewed up in the logistics and the value chain and the supply chain.
What used to happen before, we would have a situation, probably there is drought, there are floods, and we advertise and say we want to give food to the affected. Then we would get people apply, tender, and buy maize, buy beans, sometimes spaghetti. And we always got it wrong because who told you people want to eat maize? Who told you when they are exposed, their problem is spaghetti?
Yeah.
And what we decided is, why can't you use the same money, put money in this guy's pocket, the same amount, and let that person make a decision of what to eat that day. It has more dignity and it has more impact. What I'll tell you, because we run these programs, 20% to 30% of the money previously when you are doing food distribution goes to logistics. So if you have 1 million shillings, you are sure 300,000 is going to pay trucks, pay logistics and all that. But now what we are having with the collaboration from Safaricom, 300 million shillings get into the pockets of the people as 300 million shillings. And the impact is this, Eric. Before, when you are going to do tender, who would get the tender for supplying maize?
People who are connected.
Eric, Piti, Muga. No. People with means. Not necessarily people with connection. But what is happening today? When you get the 1,000 shillings, which cumulatively is the same money would have gone to tender, it goes to the lady in the kiosk who is selling skuma wiki because that's what you have chosen to take that day. And therefore, the distribution of this money to the economy is so magical, you can't believe. We did a survey in Kibra when we distributed 1 million shillings, and everybody that night was very happy because the guy who does a barber shop has got someone to shave, the guy who sells metura has someone to buy metura, because people are making choices about how they spend their money. And I think this is something that we as a country must see as a new lesson and embrace it.
Dr. Kibicho, something that has bothered us in this studio for the longest time is there are all these initiatives. There's even one called Generation Unlimited Platform and others that people don't know about. Why is it that the government doesn't go out on a blitz, and why doesn't it let people know about all these wonderful programs that they have?
Because because we try everything to, like these programs, we try everything to, first of all, I don't go to defensive myself. We should do better in terms of telling Kenyans about these programs. But we also know, the three of you, that the topic we are having is not as enticing to the ears of people compared to if we are talking about how Senate was voting yesterday, or who fought who where. That's more interesting to the ears of our people. And therefore, most of these things that we continue saying, development programs, how many people even know the kind of work we do at the framework that the president put the other day to unlock government development projects, which we have unlocked in their thousands. When they are locked, it means they are continuing, people are getting paid, and the money is circulating. But how many people want to hear that story? It's boring. But I agree that we should do better. We should be more interesting in the way we pass this message. But I can confirm that we have hundreds and hundreds of these programs that are running across the country.
But there's something there in terms of hopeful giving of what it does for Kenyans. If they would understand that there's a lot of this that's going on, I see it as something that would ignite something else in another person in terms of hope for their own country. If they know that some of these you're talking about hundreds of development projects being unlocked. If people know that this is going on, there's something that it does for them. In terms of giving hope, in terms of igniting hope. So it seems like it's something that you would want to shout from the mountaintops that is being done.
I agree with you. And we still go back to how a human eye sees. I don't know whether you have passed through Limuru Road of late to go to Gigiri, any of you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
I'm sure you can't remember there is a very beautiful road that has been built there. But once you pass the road and there's some narrow strip and you hit a small pothole.
You remember the pothole?
You forget all the beautiful road you've driven into and you say this government only has potholes.
Yes.
I think we must, first of all, as Kenyans, collectively become more patriotic than we are and start seeing government for what it is. Government exists for nothing else other than providing services to its people. And we can see, for example, if you look at the digitization program that has gone into this country, and what it will do in terms of saving man hours and efficiency and making sure that there is transparency in the way things are conducted in government. Nobody quantifies this, but we will keep talking about them. Probably we should up the game in terms of communication, but I just want to pick just digitization program, for example. I'm sure looking at the three of you, you have in your life started as a small company of supplying water or to anybody. You used to queue.
We are not going to confirm or deny that.
No. You don't have to. Remember, I am PS Interior. I have the capacity to know whether you...
Oh, my goodness.
This would segue into some more questions. Kibicho.
I'll not go there.
All right.
But I'm saying, if you ever tried, you know that you'd go to the registrar of companies, do a company search, wait for 3 weeks. Are you aware that you can do that now on your phone now and get a company registered? Do you know you can do your search for land here now and get your answer so that you can go for a bank loan? Do you know how you can do know your customer without leaving that seat you're sitting on because of the digitization program that we are having? And now shortly we are going to have a Huduma number that people I think forgot about, that will make you even not ever enter an office because you can get services even as you walk on the streets. The other day we just launched a program in Buruburu for police. And that has brought the OB to where you are seated. So if you are on the wrong side of law, or if you want to report something to police, that journey that you're making to a police station to go and write in the big OB book has been reduced to your cell phone.
Yeah.
That you can actually report, and it goes to an occurrence book of police without you leaving your desk. And I think when you look overall in what is the impact of this in terms of savings for the government, savings for the people, and conveniences, it's immense. And we have to learn actually how to appreciate some of this. But I agree with you 100%. There's a concern that we have as government that we need to do better in terms of communication.
You see, what muddies these waters even further, Dr. Kibicho, is when politicians wade in and we hear statements like deep state. Then someone like myself who thinks they're fairly informed wonders, what on earth is this deep state? What does it do? Does it even exist? Because anything that could possibly go wrong seems to be channeled and blamed to this entity that isn't very clearly understood, called the deep state. Can you talk a little bit about this, please?
I had curiously seen that C.T. Muga had not spoken.
You're serving the punch.
And I knew when he comes around, he would come with something heavy. You know, there are very many things that we keep hearing and also wonder what they are. You see, when people don't understand something, they try to create explanations through mystery. Deep state is a term used by people loosely to mean probably bad things from government. Because when you are told deep state, the three of you, you don't think those are preachers and bishops. That is not what comes to your mind. And I think this definition is as outrageous as it can get. What is deep state? I'm yet to understand it. Probably because you have used the term. What do you think deep state is? So that I can deny or confirm.
Well, it often refers, as you correctly have surmised, powerful people within government whose role is to manipulate things to suit purposes other than that which is advertised. That is loosely what I have garnered. But I am...
The real wielders of power.
Yes, but I'm confused still, because that's why I asked the question.
I think there isn't any deep state that we know about. The government is structured in a manner that everybody can see. Nowadays, we have a lot of facilities to ensure that we can interrogate anything that we think about. But when I was a little younger and I could dare with philosophy, I was saying that there is a work for even Satan. The devil. Because if you don't go to work, you can't feed your family, things are not working. At least you have something to blame. Nasema hii ni kazi ya shetani. At least the Satan has some work. Because you can't explain things, then there must be some Satan who is making things not work. And I think when people even fail in obvious responsibilities, or when people cannot explain some things to the citizens who they are supposed to serve, then it's very easy to say that I am not able to do this because there's some deep state that is stopping me from doing it, or there's some deep state that is frustrating me. But really, what is deep state? Who is that person called deep state, whose work is to frustrate other leaders and service providers to frustrate Kenyans? I think it is outrageous, and I really will one day would want to write a book.
People are demanding accountability for everything government, Bona PS. And among the things, yesterday we were speaking to the NARC Kenya party leader, Martha Karua, and she was saying, you know what, these questions are asked. For example, in this fight against COVID-19, we demand accountability, some simple things. You have received X amount of money as a government, you have spent X amount of money and in these particular projects. Why is it so hard to get this simple clarity on issues?
When you want information from government, you get it. Because there is no expenditure in government that is done in a manner that is not known to people. Number two, some statements are as outrageous as they come. Now, the budget of this country, the budget is roughly 3 trillion when we are doing very well. Now, when you hear, even you're supposed to even interrogate before you even talk. When you hear that 300 billion has been given to COVID effort and it has been misappropriated, where is the 300 billion coming from? It's a tenth of our entire economy. Some of these things that we talk about is because when we create suspicion around government, then it becomes juicy.
But Dr. Kibicho, if I may ask you on that.
Let me finish. I would want people to be very specific that government has allocated 10 billion to buy the following things. And I am not here to defend any position. Mm-hmm. I'm only saying that we need to be a little deeper and a little factual. We have allocated 10 billion for a certain function. Then you will say, this function, according to me, the same way that they interrogate a road. That there's a road from here to the river that is 20 kilometers. You go to the books and find it has spent 20 billion. Then you divide 20 billion by 20 kilometers and say, we think that this road is overpriced because the price per kilometer
is $1 billion.
But the way we talk is as if there is some 1 billion spent on that road and your mathematics don't tally, then the 1 billion didn't build a road. We need to start being scientific in the manner we interrogate this. And when there is wrongdoing, we put this to the right institutions. Instead of mob justice, we put it into the right institutions. And we are not short of them in this country, or that will interrogate misappropriation of funds. But I think just casting aspersions on every effort that the government tries to see, we are even, remember, Eric, when we started these interventions, there are even people saying there is no COVID.
Yep.
The government is a creation of a situation so that money is eaten. Where is this money eaten?
You see, Bonapiers, this is coming from... I think this is an indication, Bonapiers, that you have a population that does not trust the government. At what point did the government lose the trust of its people?
I think I would want you to do a survey across the world of citizens and their governments. I think because government exists to provide services, there will always be a reason why a Kenyan is or a citizen of any country is not happy about a service. And therefore, when we do the happiness index, you will find because government is supposed to provide services, and when that service is not given, regardless of what other positive services you have given, people will complain. And I think our work is to keep checking that there is complaint around this area, keep adjusting so that you attempt to make your citizens as satisfied as possible. So we cannot deny the right of Kenyans to scrutinize government and to criticize where they think the services ought to be given in a different manner. And I think, as you say this, we appreciate, because that's what we are supposed to do, and keep recalibrating our methods. But we also call the same responsibility when you are, so that we are factual. I'll tell you this, the three of you. We have a forum called Mulika, where citizens report. And we get thousands of reports of people committing crime and all this. Some as inactionable as they can get. When a person tells you tuko huku Kiambu na kuko na waizi wanaiba. So where do you go to solve that problem? I think we need a responsibility ourselves to make sure that even as we put government on its feet, we are putting government on its feet in a manner that it can identify the problem and solve it. But we welcome criticism and we welcome the scrutiny from the public, because that is what we are supposed to do for people, provide service. But I agree, sometimes when the bigger bulk of the people are unhappy, then we have to sit back and check why are these people unhappy and continue making sure that we readjust.
We hope even with the digitization program that it's going to be easier for people to engage with the government, for people to ask questions, then they'll be more specific, for people to get answers for specific questions or even raise specific concerns, and that the government then is able to even interpret what the people are saying. We thank you very much, Dr. Karanja Kibicho, for speaking to us this morning. We know that there's a lot that you'd like to tell Kenyans, but just take 1 minute to give a message to the people of the Republic.
This is our country. We only have one government. We only have one country. And I think how comfortable and how well we live in this country depends on what we want to get from it. I call upon my fellow Kenyans that we start creating positive mentality so that together we can build this country. The institutions that we have, those are our institutions. And when they are working, we are all happy. When they are not working, we are all frustrated. So we try as much as possible as Kenyans to ensure that we support the functionality of these institutions. I will just end with one that is very popular with Kenyans, called the National Police Service. It will be unfair for me not to say this because we keep criticizing. We keep saying that these fellows are not as slim as we would want to see them, like the Singapore ones. But I want to remind ourselves, today we have slept comfortably, we have woken up, the three of you in the studio having come safely because of these people. They sacrifice their lives for us. And as Kenyans, it is our responsibility to ensure that because they are our sisters and brothers, we also support them so that their morale is also motivated, and we ensure that that they give us the best that they can. Lastly, I call upon all of us to be responsible, know that we have COVID, know that this is not fake news like you had said earlier. I'm sure everyone in this country now knows a person who has been tested COVID positive. We start now perpetuating positive messaging, ensuring that the people who have regrettably turned positive are not stigmatized and looked at as if they have leprosy, to treat this disease as a normal disease now, that when you are positive, do what the doctors are saying and you will be well. The fatality is only at 1.7%. Thank you very much.
Asante sana, Dr. Engineer Karanja Kibicho, PS in the State Department of Interior and Citizen Services. An hour is not long enough, so we'll invite you again for a phase 2 of this conversation as well, and hoping that we are soon able, with the help of our government, to beat COVID-19 so that you can now come and join us in the studio and have this conversation with us right here.
I'm here for you, Eric.
Asante sana, and
Asante
have a
sana.
good day.
Thank you very much, sir.